Hey everybody, welcome back to #Fempire. Today's guest is joining us from North Carolina, USA, and this conversation cuts straight to the moment we're living in. Jen Phillips is the founder of The New Ambition. In this episode, she shares how she's feeling about the current state of America and what that uncertainty feels like on a human level. Drawing on her firsthand experience in tech, Jen breaks down how the race for AI is reshaping workplaces and quietly burning through the pipeline of female talent. She also speaks candidly about leadership and burnout, and what happens when leaders fail to model healthy boundaries. And in a vulnerable moment of reflection, Jen shares the realization that changed everything for her. There had to be more to life than just work. Jen spent 2 decades inside global growth systems, most recently as Senior Vice President of Global Marketing Operations at Salesforce. Now, she's helping others redefine what success looks like. Through her company, The New Ambition, she supports high-performing teams that have hit a growth ceiling, restoring focus, driving execution, and getting the right work across the finish line without burning people out. This episode is about power, pace, and the cost of progress when women are left behind. So let's get into it. So thanks so much for being on the podcast, Jen.
I am so excited to be here with you. And when you reached out, I was really excited about your mission. And so thanks for the opportunity.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I think we've got a lot to talk about. But I do want to start off. We're just a few weeks into 2026, and it's been a bit of a rough start for the world watching what's unfolding in America. We're seeing ICE raids, reports of civilians being shot, the capture of Venezuela's president, and this looming threat of an invasion in Greenland. So, I do want to ask you, how are you feeling in this moment? What's been weighing on your mind in this time?
I am heartbroken, honestly. And I want to say clearly that Americans are not a monolith. And overwhelmingly, most of the people that I know and most people want to have stability. We want to have cooperation. We want to have allies. We want to have the freedom to go outside and safely take our kids to school and not do the amount of worrying that we have to do today in this country. We want to wake up without worrying about what the news was overnight or which of our allies we've broken up with overnight. So none of this is okay. I say that understanding that we elected the current administration, and overwhelmingly, I am not alone in saying this isn't okay. The majority of Americans don't feel any of this is okay. I also want to say it hits home for me because not only am I an American, but I spent some of my time as a young adult in Venezuela. I lived there through 2 coups. My heart knows that the Venezuelans, like all people, deserve to understand that they're safe in their own streets. I've seen what it's like firsthand to be there when they're not. And I feel that that's looming for them again and is happening now. And the same for Greenland, honestly. These are peaceful people that just want to wake up, successfully navigate through their day, hug their loved ones and have good lives. And this type of worry is not what anyone is seeking. So I understand too that, and this really is the most heartbreaking bit, and I'm emotional about it, is that we are now creating a real erosion of trust with both, inside the boundaries of our country and also on the global stage. And that isn't something just like in business. That trust is an erosion that does not come back as quickly as it was lost. It will take time and it will take consistency. And I don't know when that time will start. And I don't trust right now that we can be as consistent as we'll need to be. So yeah, it's a hard time to be an American. My family is Canadian. My son has dual citizenship. His wife has dual citizenship. My sister is a Canadian. These are not just our neighbors. This is my family. And so I kind of feel I'm in the middle like all Americans. And unfortunately, too much of the world are in the middle of an onslaught that doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Mhm. And I appreciate your points, and I can't imagine being an American, seeing what's happening in nearby states and in your backyard, and us as Canadians seeing this from the outside has been, again, overwhelming, speechless, and this constant fear, I think, and anxiety a lot of people are feeling, not just what's happening in America, what's happening in Iran, what's happening in Sudan. It's just this nonstop of chaos, really. But I wanna talk a little bit more about some of maybe even the actors at play within the current administration in America. So we know that there's a lot of tech bros really behind this administration, and you yourself have worked in the tech industry. You worked at Salesforce as a VP for over a decade. Knowing what you know about the internal culture of tech companies and the corporate world, what is it like for you to watch these tech giants wield so much power and influence over government? Do you think there's that impact spilling over into how society is being run right now?
Yeah, I think it's more of an enablement to a means to an end. Outside of government, there's a race right now to win the AI race. There is a need from the tech side to have the ability to build the data centers, to have access to the energy that requires, to have the flexibility to bring in the talent that they think it requires, and to work that talent essentially as hard as possible to try to win the race. So it's absolutely an outsized influence as a result because that AI race is a ton of upside for these companies. And it's a power that is almost unimaginable. But yeah, I think we're at the tipping point, but is ubiquitous and woven in through kind of every facet of our life. I was actually the senior vice president of global marketing operations. So my job at Salesforce, and I reported to the CMO in my final stint, was to help with kind of executing all of these transformations right at the beginning of when you started to see tech layoffs and when you started to see the race for AI really, really heating up. So being on the inside of that and watching how the decisions got made and being a part of rolling through how that would transform the marketing organization, the distribution teams, all of the ways that we were working. What I saw and what worries me most, even to this day, is the speed. When you're acting at that speed, a lot of the detail and the context can get lost. You remember the destination, you know the destination you're trying to achieve, world domination, total power, the race for AI won. And some of the collateral damage is considered acceptable in a way that I think has repercussions that folks aren't really considering downstream. Some are. You'll hear people talking about, okay, well then what is the future of work? How will people navigate through these changes once work is done in a much more autonomous way through machinery and not as much through people? How will we retrain people and reskill people even now instead of simply laying people off when their function is now no longer needed or a portion of the people that do that function are no longer required? And I've written a lot about this, but in tech specifically, where you really started to see this before I left happening was, and still to this day, is women are feeling the brunt of layoffs in a way that's very, very different than men. They're like 1.6 times more likely to get laid off than their male counterparts. Why is that? Because they're kind of centered in functions which are more heavily populated by females. So marketing is one of those places. Human resources is another one of those places. And those were some of the early places where you started to see the teams getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So I worry most about the speed negating the value of considering the impact or the implications downstream. And those implications won't just be to tech. Tech is the tip of the spear, but those implications will be for how work gets done. And these are the types of questions that not enough people are thinking about as they build the tech as quickly as they can. To circle back, the impact of government is huge because there is that highly focused race to win AI and not enough attention being given to. And then what happens to everyone?
I really appreciate your insights. And coming from a history background, like for me, this has all felt like with the movement towards AI, push from both governments for mining resources, for finding the people to develop it, the workforce and what that looks like. It feels like this arms race. I feel like in history books, when we read about the pressures leading up to wars, it seemed so dull on paper, but now I feel like we're living through it a little bit. Like,
Right.
COVID was that pressure, all these different wars that we're seeing around us through our screens. And it makes more sense how these pressures lead to these bigger outcomes. And again, we're adding tech and AI and how fast it is moving into this mixture of everything happening and people trying to digest all of this at once, right? And you brought up the erosion of this talent pipeline for women in tech. That's something that you've been writing about. I want to lean into a little bit of that more. And as we're talking about burnout, which happens to be higher for women in tech, from your experience, how much of that would you say is cultural, maybe versus structural, or vice versa?
So, just to give you some of the numbers, the erosion of women in tech is not only happening at one level of the kind of the talent pipeline. So computer science seekers, women seeking CS degrees are declining. Entries for women into the tech workforce are declining. 50% of women leave tech by the age of 35, never come back, and they were already underrepresented. And then by the time you get into the executive layer where I left, you're at 11% of the entire tech workforce is women. Burnout isn't only because there's a lack of childcare or there's a hustle culture that women can't navigate because they carry more of the outside responsibilities of work outside of work for caregiving, but whether it's for kids or for parents as you get older. It's 1,000 paper cuts. You do not feel you'll have the same opportunity to advance in your career. And you're right. You're promoted as a woman, you're promoted less frequently than your male counterparts. You don't see a path. If I'm a woman in tech and I'm not going to be promoted at the same level, and I can see that the one lady up there just left because it's impossible. And I was one of those ladies, which is why I still talk about this because I have a pretty clear sense of guilt for leaving and showing people that it is a requirement to burn out or to flame out in tech if you're a woman. So it's 1,000 points where you say, I don't see a path that's sustainable for me and my success inside of tech. It's not just women, but for women, especially as the layoffs picked up, especially as women were unseated more than their male counterparts, the only path really, and this isn't limited to tech, the only path is out. And an immense amount of women, especially in the US, I just wrote about this morning, 90,000 women in December left the workforce, exited the workforce. 10,000 men entered in December. This is a problem. And it's not limited to tech, it's systemic. One person can't fix it. We all have responsibilities to fixing it. But the answer is certainly not, go to the spa, relax a little. You come back into a system that's inherently broken and not limited to tech, but in tech specifically, it's really difficult to see a path as chairs or women keep being pulled away from the table.
And I saw those numbers as well, and my jaw just dropped because I think anecdotally, we will see it in our communities or in our friend groups. But when you start seeing these actual numbers of different organizations putting them forward, it's like, no, 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 these are national, domestic, alarming numbers. But I want to lead into your experiences. You've led global teams in tech and you stepped away from that position, from that high paying role. So I want to ask you, what moment first forced you to question the version of success, and I'm putting air quotes, success you were trying to chase?
Yeah, so let me be very clear first. I was not trying to chase success. I am a puzzle solver. I am kind of an accidental executive. I was given bigger, messier puzzles to solve, and I loved that. And for most of my career, I called my job my jobby. I called my job my dream job, and it was. I love all of my career trajectory, but I got to a point, and again, I think I had my dream job at the nightmare time, which was when these types of factors started happening where tech was the tip of the spear for layoffs. The way that the layoffs happened, I found really disturbing, and a kind of a lack of, these are top performers. Let's really find a home for them, because on one side we're letting people go and then we're hiring in different areas. Is there no way that we can take these people that have gotten us to this point and help them find a new place? Everybody wins in that kind of a scenario. And the data is there. The research is there to show that if you keep these people and you retrain people, it's actually really great for the institutional knowledge and for the organization as a whole. But yes, I've led global teams. I have had huge remits. I had everything on paper that made me look like I was successful. I'll do the air quotes too. And yet, every day I woke up and I felt increasingly unsuccessful in my life. I was not well physically. I'd have really debilitating migraines 3 to 4 times a week, and I worked through them. This is part of the territory, but I worked an insane amount of hours. I gave everything. This is my doing, by the way. Just in case any of them hear this. Every boss I've ever had has encouraged me, and some of them have even incentivized me to take vacations. I didn't do it because I gave more of myself than I should have to the job because I cared so much about the people I was leading. But when you do that at the expense of your own well-being, what ends up happening is you're setting the example that people are watching every day, that kind of watch what I do, not what I say. On one side of my mouth, I'm telling people, make sure you're taking your vacations, make sure that you are really shutting down, and I would protect them for it and for doing it. Make sure that we have clear teaming arrangements, make sure that we are really investing in the career portability of our team. And I didn't do any of that for myself. So they saw what I did and they watched me burn myself all the way to a crisp. So I was anxious, I was exhausted, I had no energy left for anything outside of work. And to me, that is not success. And so I had to make a decision for myself. And I'm a risk averse person. And if you would have told me 6 months before that I would put in my notice, I would tell you, you're crazy. I had everything. But what I didn't have is my health. I didn't have my happiness. I didn't have any autonomy over my time. And so to me, as I really thought about my own definition of success, I knew that wasn't it. And I made the decision. I'm an ops and strategy leader. So I planned for a long time and made a plan for myself that made sense. And I acted on it. I've never walked away from a job without another job, ever in my life. But it was worth it. I'm still using the skills that I've honed for my entire career. I'm just using them in novel ways. And I believe that work should not take everything you have.
Very, very well said. And I resonate a lot with that, as I'm a bit of a transition in my career, my life now, of what is success for me? What do I want to give and leave as an impact in this world? I think a lot of people do focus and put a lot into their careers, but I do want to ask you, if you're comfortable sharing, what do you remember the feelings were? Because you said it took you time to come to that decision, and maybe a little bit of sliver of peace with yourself to say, it's okay, this isn't good for me anymore. We can just move on and not have the next things lined up. Was there a sense of mourning? You used the word guilt in one of your responses earlier. Like, if you
Yeah.
wanted to share a little bit about that, but if you could just bring us maybe a little bit back. And I'm asking this because I think in today's day and age, as we're talking about, the world's kind of on fire and people are looking for that purpose or not feeling good where they're at. What advice can you give them and share with them that it's okay to feel these feelings?
So the first thing I want to say is I wish I knew some of the things then that I know now. Here's a couple of things I want anybody out there to know. Here's what I was feeling. I got to the top of the ladder, higher than I ever thought I'd get on the ladder. And I looked around and I realized this isn't even the wall I wanted to be leaning this ladder against. My values are outside of the values of the work that I have to uphold. And that's nothing to say. Salesforce is a great company doing great things for a lot of people. Just where I wasn't for me anymore. And it was enough. But leading up to it, here's some of the things I was feeling. Well, I was unwell physically. That was anxiety and stress and just being out of alignment with your own values. That is an erosion of the soul, and you cannot overcome that, right? Once your values are kind of compromised, you are selling your soul a tiny bit every day, which is not good for anyone. But what I didn't know then was if I had looked left or looked right and asked any of my counterparts, listen, this is how I'm feeling, at least one of them would have said, oh, yeah, I'm going through it too. I thought it was me. I thought something was wrong with me. So what I didn't understand was the prevalence of burnout inside the workplace. I thought I was broken, when instead what's really happening is the workplace is an unhealthy place for the majority of people. It's somewhere between 60 and 70% of people in the workplace are complaining of burnout. Now, that isn't only down to what's happening in the workplace. It's every part of our lives that's really almost impossible every day, right? But when my soul got eroded because my values were out of alignment, this is where I knew this isn't okay. And I'll tell you the moment. I tried to take a Friday. I tried to take a Friday off. There was a lot going on. This is all public knowledge. Salesforce was going through a period of activist investors. My boss was the new CMO of the company. He was still ramping. I hadn't had a vacation a long time, and I tried to take a 3-day weekend, which is a Friday off, with my husband. It was kind of a staycation. We just went to a little horse farm right outside our town. And I didn't get through check-in before I was inundated with like Slacks and texts. And I snuck my computer with me. And I spent the rest of this spa weekend, day and night, triangulating my team to support a deck that was needed for a CEO meeting that was going to happen on Monday morning. And I realized during that weekend, getting ready for that meeting, my team was doing the work, but I was the go-between and doing all the reviews and just hustling up everybody. Very typical. But what I realized was I was holding my chest while it was happening. I was holding my chest the whole time, just holding. And I just felt this intense heat and pressure in my chest. Here I am at a spa. And I realized it might be a heart attack that I'm having. It wasn't. But when I really started thinking about it, I realized I had been sitting in meetings for months holding my heart that way. And I hadn't realized it until that weekend. I was on the East Coast. They were all in San Francisco. So through our dinner, as the sun was going down over the Blue Ridge Mountains, this beautiful spot in this beautiful place, I'm surreptitiously handling the Slacks under the table. My husband knew. He was used to it. Everything's an emergency. And we went up into this grain silo, which they use for meditations. And it's overlooking the sunset. The last dregs of the sunset were happening after dinner. And we sat up there. And in this converted grain silo, they have all this writing on the wall from previous guest to future guest. There was this person that had written on the wall, day one, you decide. And that was the minute that the thought entered my head.
You know I had to leave you on a cliffhanger. If you want to hear more of Jen's story, don't go anywhere. Part 2 is coming up. Jen continues to share her secrets for success, and we'll dive deeper into workplace culture and how the new ambition helps teams reach their highest potential without burning out in the process. I'm your host, Julia Pinella, And this is Hashtag Fempire. We'll catch you on the next episode.